Our next speaker is Sanjoy Mookerjee, who is the head of the Kolkata chapter of the Rail Enthusiast Society. In fact, he is so active in Kolkata that he embarrasses us in Delhi. Anyway, the presentation will be conducted by Vinu Mathur, our president. I don't think he needs any introduction, so I will hand over to Vinu. Vinu, the stage is yours.
Yeah, so thank you.
Saurav,
Thank you very much. It is my pleasure to welcome Sanjoy Mookerjee. Sanjoy Mookerjee, just to give you a brief introduction, served the railways as an accounts officer. He belongs to the Indian Railway Account Service, and he retired as a member of the Railway Board and its financial commissioner. He is a true rail enthusiast and very active in conservation of railway heritage. As divisional railway manager on the Northeast Frontier Railway, he created this beautiful museum and park at Tinsukia, which is the headquarters of this division, close to the division is located in the far east, close to the Burmese border. And the kind of constraints he must have had, one can only imagine. So I'm sure it's going to be a very enjoyable presentation. I do recall in the early 2000s, the Railway Staff College had started doing a course on railway heritage, and they once invited me to speak on the subject. And Sanjay was one of the participants. I didn't know him very well then. However, about 10 years later, when I met him, he rattled off a lot of details from that presentation and had preserved some of its photographs. So I then realized what a keen student of rail heritage Sanjay was. As mentioned by Jail, he is a member of our managing committee and head of our Calcutta chapter, which is very, very active indeed. He organizes regular walks, talks, exhibitions, quizzes. He put in a tremendous effort to conserve the unique girders of the Jubilee Bridge. This was a bridge over the river in Calcutta, built in 1887, the Jubilee year of Queen Victoria. And more recently, we just had this beautiful, wonderful session on Calcutta Trams, 150-year celebrations. And Sanjay also played an important role in the organization of that particular event. Sanjay is a prolific writer and has produced a number of books. He has written on the Darjeeling Himalayan Railway and a book called The Train to Darjeeling and Other Stories. More recently, he's written a book about the railways in Assam and has also published a novel called Howrah Junction, which is based on the railways. I'm sure we are going to have a very enjoyable session because he is also again talking about how if you have the enthusiasm, the keenness, the determination, you can create a railway museum despite all the hurdles that you face. Sanjay, it's all yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, sir. We can.
Yes, go ahead. Let me welcome all of you. Good afternoon to everybody in India, and good morning and good evening to those in other time zones all over the world. There is a word which is called guru, which is prevalent all over the globe now. And I think Mr. Vinu Mathur has been a guru to me. And I feel blessed by his introduction today. Well, the Railway Heritage Park cum Museum in New Tinsukia. Now, this is, people would ask, where is New Tinsukia? Where is New Tinsukia. I don't know. Many of us who have not visited the northeastern part of the country may not even know where Tinsukia is. And I dare say that people around the world would know even less. But those who have got a chance to go to New Tinsukia would find this park right opposite the New Tinsukia railway station. Now, one thing we must ask, why a new railway museum there at all? What is so special about a place called New Tinsukia? Now, we must first, in this map, if I can, this is the Indian Railways map. And I will kindly have a look at the extreme eastern part of the country where my palm is going. This is Assam, and there are 7 states of India all surrounding Assam. This is the point where Tinsukia town exists. One of the major transportation, transportation links of this part of the isolated edge of Indian subcontinent is the Brahmaputra river. The river goes like this, enters into Bangladesh, becomes renamed as Meghna, joins the Padma, and comes onto the Bay of Bengal. Now, this is where Tinsukia is. Why should there be a museum there? Because of its rich railway heritage and legacy. You see, what was the condition? What is this place? This is the place where everybody knows is famous for its tea. Worldwide, the Assam tea is world famous brew. But it is here that Tinsukia exists. This is the great river Brahmaputra, which emanates from the Sangpo River in Tibet and enters at a place called Parshuram Kund from down into the Himalayas. The entire area is surrounded by high mountains and Himalayas. On one side, you have Burma or Myanmar. South, you have Bangladesh. So, let us think about why we brought in, why railway was brought there, and that also way back in the late 19th century. If we talk about the history of the region, we'll find that from 18 up to the 18th century, this was away from India's regular polity. It was ruled by the Shan dynasty, which essentially was a Far Eastern dynasty. But what changed matters was that in the early 19th century, the British, who knew about tea from China, some of the explorers found tea here. There was a tribe called the Singpho tribe who used to brew tea. Now, that was a great cash crop. And in the multinational race of commerce in those days, tea was a very important product. In this, we remember that even the United States had the Boston Tea Party. And before the Tea Party came there, tea used to be a favorite brew in US. Later they converted it to coffee mostly. So soon, tea plantations started coming here. In 1839, the British set up a company called the Assam Company, which had its first tea garden in a place called Chabua. If you see I'll just widen it again. You see, this is the place called Chabua, very near Tinsukia. And there is a road which links a place called Dibrugarh on the banks of the river and Tinsukia and this area. Once tea started getting produced, it had to be transported. It had to be exported. There was absolutely no communication except this river, and it was a very big navigable river like today. So steamboats used to run all the way and go down, as I had explained earlier. With the rapid expansion of tea gardens in the 18th century, this need became paramount. At that point of time, there was a British doctor by the name of Dr. John Berry White, who lived in Dibrugarh, was an owner of a tea garden, and he said that we must have a railway. So the initial use of a railway was totally from one river point to another river point, because the main transportation was river. So there would be a crescent for the tea transportation. But something changed in the mid-80s. Petroleum was discovered. The British there went and appealed to the Lieutenant Governor of Assam province and then on to the government in UK, and they wanted to build a railway. Why? Because this area is so rain oriented that any road of any sort is a big problem. 9 months, the road used to be clogged totally with quagmire and swampy. So there was no way by which you could take the tea to the river ports. So the railway, then the government said, well, we can't give you the railway in such a place. We don't have any basic idea of how much profitable it will be. So you please do it yourself. And then came a company which was named the Assam Railways and Trading Company, which was established in 1881, incorporated in the United Kingdom. This company not only had interest in tea, but also oil and coal in the area of Upper Assam. And the first railway line was built, if you see, again, let me come to this, connecting the Dibrugarh town, a place called Dibrumukh, to Saikuaghat. In between, there used to be 8 railway stations, and this was full of tea gardens. The tea used to be transported by rail to this point, and from here by river onto Calcutta port and export. But then with the incorporation of, or rather the invention, the discovery of oil, petroleum and coal in Upper Assam, suddenly the idea changed and coal and oil became a principal goods to be transported by rail. In 1890, oil, timber started moving and coal also started moving. But then how to connect this isolated area to the sea? Then came the question of the Bengal-Assam Railway. This is the second railway which came, and this railway joined the Upper Assam areas to Lower Assam through below and going below the South Assam and today's Bangladesh. The Assam Bengal Railway reached the port of Chittagong, which is right now in Bangladesh. And it is in Tinsukia where the two railways met on 1st of March 1903. So in 1892, the Assam Bengal Railway came up, and tea and jute from Eastern Bengal went to Chittagong port and moved away. So we thought that we will focus on these two railways because that is the place where these two railways grew, and it gave a great amount of commercial benefit to that part of our country. It joined this isolated part to mainland India. But then we also thought about Darjeeling Himalayan. The idea came that when I asked people there, when we were posted in 2008, do you know about the DHR, which is the UNESCO World Heritage Railway? Unfortunately, although the DHR is very close to this region, nobody knew about it. So we said, why not showcase DHR here too? Because as they say, nearest to church, farthest from God. So really people many of them hadn't heard about DHR, about which the world knows. So we decided that this iconic railway, which was built between 1879 and 1891, should also be showcased here. And out came the Railway Heritage Park in Tinsukia. Now, this is the entrance. As Mr. Mishra already said, that this is such a remote place that even the bricks had to be manufactured by the railways in those days. In fact, when the railway came, the tracks, the locomotives, the wagons, everything came by river barges all the way to Dibrugarh. And before the railway was started, a workshop in Dibrugarh, which lasts even to this day, was built for assembling the rolling stock. The bricks, ABR written bricks, were all there. And this entrance is what we envisaged with these two architecturally similar towers, short towers or rooms, which are like they call it the Assam type houses. Why do they call? Because none of these houses have got what do you call concrete or pakka construction, because this area is in so high seismic zone that the construction of each and every building is very lightweight. We enter the park, and the first thing we see is this heritage wall. The first tablet tells us about the Indian Railways. This one tells about the Dibru-Sidia Railway, and this tells about the Assam-Bengal Railway and the Dibru-Sidia Railway. We'll move on. Before I start the presentation proper, I would like to highlight who are our motivators. As I had said, the mother organization was the Assam Railway and Trading Company. Today, this particular company has been trifurcated. Northeast Frontier Railways, has taken over the railway part. Coal India Limited, with its headquarters at a place called Margarita, has taken over the coal. And the Assam Oil Division of the Indian Oil Corporation at Digboy, 26 kilometers from Tinsukia, has taken over the oil refinery. In fact, Digboy had the first oil well extracted in Asia, even before oil was commercially extracted in the Middle East. And it had a refinery as early as 1901. Next, of course, Mr. Mathur. Because this was Mr. Mathur's, as he has very rightly said, in the year 2000, his lecture invoked in me and many of us the passion for looking at railway heritage as a mission. And he has been helping us all through, including many of his photographs and his writings up there in the Tinsukia Museum. Once, when I was the divisional railway manager, I was trying from 2008 to 9 to get my museum sanctioned. But obviously, there was a resource crunch and we couldn't get things through. One day, when I was returning from a training from Baroda, I walked into the National Rail Museum to see whether somebody could help me to get this museum done. I found a young man, very handsome, sitting in the director's chair. Mr. Mayank Tiwari, who is also a member of the Rail Enthusiast Society, as the director. The moment I talked about my mission and my passion, he jumped up and said, "We'll do it, sir. Don't worry." He immediately said, "Why don't you pen down what you want?" So I penned out a small estimate. And then he spoke to Mr. Harsh Kumar, the executive director in the railway board looking after finance. At that point of time, the railway budget was being formulated. And Mr. Harsh Kumar said, well, if you can keep it within 20 million rupees or 2 crores of rupees, then we can push it inside under my powers. And the entire operation took place in an hour. How do you say that the government doesn't clear proposals quickly? Then when the railway budget was placed, our project was placed there, and in another month, it was sanctioned. Next came Subrata Nath, the director DHR at that point of time. He came down and gave me iconic rolling stocks from the Darjeeling Himalayan Railway. One day I got a call. I'm sorry, I'm going into a lot of anecdotes because we do tend to feel pessimistic in the government that government doesn't sanction things. But this is a world over phenomenon. Don't say, because even Matthew said it, that in Canada, it's almost the same thing. But Indian government, especially railways, has so much of flexibility that we can get things done, as you have seen with Mr. Mishra's presentation as well. A lady called me up from Calcutta, Mrs. Monabina Dasgupta, and said, "Are you the divisional railway manager?" I said, "Yes." You see, I have lived in Dibrugarh in 1955. When my father was posted there, he was a railwayman. I want to come and search out the plan of the house that I used to live in, because that house is no more there. The river has taken it in an earthquake. She came over, and lo and behold, she brought out iconic architectural plans of those days, right from 1880s to 1960s. And they are all in the museum today. Then the director of the Dibrugarh Railway Workshop, Mr. Shugato Lahiri, he is the person who fabricated each and every item that we wanted to get done, including the toy train. Of course, the officers and staff of the railway family and the citizens of that area. Mind you, the constraints there were tremendous. Why? Because nobody had built a museum there. Nobody had heard about a museum at Tinsukia. Forget about the railway museum. The resources were meager. Anything you want, even a slab of stone, you had to ship it for 500 kilometers. The people at that time were still very restive. The northeast of India at that time was still having a bit of residual militancy. How would they take it? When we sat down with the railway team, who had to run the railway at these critical place with a lot of problems, they said, "We'll do it." Because this was something which evoked the passion of the railwayman. So we got our sanction on 16th of July 2009. We started on our work on 10th and promised ourselves we'll do it within the allocated sum of 20 million. And we shall do it in a year, in 365 days. That was our promise to ourselves. We completed it in 372. This is the drawing of the park. Why is it a park? Why is it not a covered space? You wouldn't know, in a deprived area like the northeastern part of India, Tinsukia never had a children's park was the name. And we decided to dedicate this entire railway museum to the children. We wanted them to have a fun time. And so we decided on a path. As you enter from the left, there were various arena. A is the track arena where the various track items are kept. We had a water body here, which was created. Then we had the DHR gallery on the side, on coaches. The mechanical yard was all this area. There was a toy train track all around. And the most important thing was this indoor gallery known as the Lekhapani gallery. I'll come to the Lekhapani gallery a little later. There were two types of designs. There were two stations. One is the toy train station, which was called Simanta Rail Junction. Simanta in many of the Indian languages is frontier. This was so near the frontier, only 100 kilometers from our states next, the countries next door. So it was called Simanta. And this was known as the Hall of Fame or Virasat. Virasat means heritage. This is where the rolling stock were kept. If you see, this is the spot where we started. It's full of water hyacinth. It was a swamp full of snakes, frogs, and vegetation. And the first thing we had to do, it took 2 months for us to fill up this place and make it into from a caterpillar to a butterfly at the end. The work starts on 10th of September. We were all there. The leader in this was this gentleman who was talking to us, Mr. Gurjeet Singh, who was the senior divisional engineer along with the entire team out here, and the additional DRM, Mr. Ganveer. You see, this is the spot. This is the national highway. The railway station is towards the right. This is the spot which we filled up. There is a fueling depot of the locomotives. It was still a diesel traction in those days. There was only one artifact there, and this was this particular YP locomotive. The name of this locomotive was given fondly as Jaymati. Who is Jaymati? Will come later. We didn't have narrow gauge tracks. Meter gauge tracks. So we had to use broad gauge tracks to lay the meter gauge tracks at right angles to where Jaymati was. We wanted to shift it and relocate it. The meter gauge of this area had been abandoned around 10 years back in 1998. So nothing remained. This is for the 2 feet narrow gauge trap. They are being laid on 23rd of September 2009. Then come the Darjeeling coaches. They came by road, hauled up by road cranes, and placed on these tracks. We could obtain three rolling stock, kind of rolling stock, one diesel, meter gauge stock, Jaymati, the steam, and 2 coaches, which we decided to move into theme coaches. This is Jaymati. Jaymati is a YP locomotive 2139, which ran the last meter gauge train from Dibrugarh town to Lido on 21st January 1997. Jaymati is a princess of the Ahom kings, the ancient kings of Assam. We had to turn it round, but we couldn't. The turning circle or the space was not adequate. So we had to cut it into half physically and rejoin it at right angle. 2 18-ton road cranes came and shifted the locomotive. Then came this bridge pillars of 1894. Now, this is a very interesting story. In 2008, 9, 10, we were replacing all early steel girder bridges over the division by concrete bridges. One of these bridges, we have, by that time, already the news had got down that, well, a museum is going to be created, and everybody in this division was energized and impassioned to find some stuff which can be given to the museum as a artifact. I had gone to inspect that bridge because the old steel girder bridge had to be removed by the big 140-ton accident relief crane. The permanent way engineer who was supervising, it's a place called Naharkatia, he said, "Sir, there's something embedded below the girder bridge. Would you care to have a look?" Oh my God. I went down onto the river with all of us went into the river. It was a shallow river. And there we found these two piles with the embossment Assam Bengal Railway 1898 was this pile cap, and the piles were 1894. We extracted it by the same crane and brought them back to the museum. The toy train station and the heritage wall was being constructed. There was another artifact. This is the turntable, meter gauge turntable. This was somewhere lying in our backyard of our divisional office. When we, sorry, if you see this 1892 Cow and Sheldon Company, we brought it out and immediately placed it on, I made it a working turntable. Not only did we put it, but we also placed a coach on top of it. A colliery. Tepong is a very famous colliery in the Patkai Hills, where locomotives are used to haul, narrow gauge locomotives haul wagons inside and extract coal. There was this particular B-class locomotive from DHR, which was purchased by the Tepong Colliery of the Coal India Limited in 1964 and used. Later on, since the mines supervisors had not allowed steam locomotion inside the collieries, this was lying abandoned. We requested the authorities, why don't you give it to us after restoration? They had a lovely mechanical plant which were running their diesel and steam locos, and they made it out for us and sent it to us, and we placed it on top of the Naharkatia pillars and restored it to its pristine glory. They were built by Sharp Stewart of UK. This is a B-class 781 narrow gauge 2-feet locomotive. Then came the question, the issue of the toy train track has started coming, if you see, and we also find the turntable coming up. Again, Lekhapani. Lekhapani, I'll come later. The toy train has arrived. This was manufactured by the Dibrugarh workshop, and the coaches were manufactured by our wagon depot there itself. Now the toy trains are ready. These are the two stations where the toy train called the Rhino, and this was everybody's favorite, especially that of the kids. The Simanta Rail Junction, the name came from a 8-year-old boy. We made a lottery and we said that we'll give a prize to anybody who could give a proper name to this station. So this 8-year-old boy was the station master's son, and he gave this name, and we gladly adopted it. If you see the pillars which are created here, these pillars are known as the Assam bungalow type pillars. Many of you will know the word bungalow comes from the word Bangla. Bangla means Bengal. It was the construction of houses in Bengal, which was bungalow. But Bengal had a more intricate kind of a pillar. Assam has more simple kind of a pillar because of the seismic issues. So once we had filled up this entire area, then we had to create a waterway. The footover bridge was start coming up. And finally, perhaps the lone meter gauge Garrett available in the world. This machine, this 28-wheeler Garrett locomotive, steam locomotive, double-headed, was lying in Guwahati yard, half pilfered, except the wheels and some part of the outer body, nothing was there. This is how we brought them out again with the 140-ton crane and put them in. So this is all that we had. We didn't have plans. We didn't know how to complete this thing. So the usual governmental way of doing things, we put up an advertisement in the paper. One day, in the morning at 9 o'clock, when we used to every day go and supervise the working of the yard of this museum being built, a gentleman got down from the Kamrup Express from Calcutta. His name is Rahul Biswas. I hope Rahul is listening today. At that time, I didn't know his name. He belongs to Indian Railway Fan Clubs Association. He's a member, I think. He is also a fan of Garrett locomotives. He came and said, I understand there is a Garrett somewhere here, meter gauge Garrett. You might know. Can I meet any authority who can give me some information about it? I said, you can meet me, but I can't give you any information about it. There it is lying in front of you. The gentleman had immediately rushed under it, opened his laptop, and lo and behold, he had the entire numbering system, the entire design of this locomotive with him on his laptop. He told us that this is an MWG class loco, which was built by Bear Peacock and Company, Gorton Foundry, Manchester in 1945, and it belonged to the British War Department. It had seen war service in Burma and in Eastern Bengal during the Second World War. We were very grateful, and thanks to his help, in fact, this particular locomotive had worked in the Northeast Frontier Railway up to 1965, and then it was abandoned. And with his help, we were able to fabricate all these remaining parts, and today it finds its place beautifully on a pedestal, although it cannot be run. Then we come to the foot-over bridges, and here it is, the DHR, the DHR corner. All round this coach, we have a first-class coach here, which was like this. Sorry, later on it has become like this. On top, on this turntable, we placed the second-class coach, and it was like this. And all around the coaches, we have a photo exhibition there, which also tells us what are the locomotives, where are all the DHR locomotives placed. The work starts. The station masters, station managers came over from various places and themselves supervised how a station should look like, a toy train station. The workers working along. B781 and Jayamati being restored. Suddenly the park fountains came up, the music starts working. And now you see the station at night. There it is. Now let's come to Lekhapani. The question of how should the gallery, indoor gallery, be designed? We thought of representing Northeast in some form or the other, the cultural buildings of Northeast. But unfortunately, there are multitudes of, ethnic history there. The states differ. They have a lot of culture built into them. And so we ultimately decided, why not we replicate the historic Repapani station? Now, although people who have read war annals of Assam and the Second World War, the Japanese onslaught there, and so this was the great station called Depakani, although it is very humble to look at, but one would not believe that during the war it had handled 1 million refugees running away from the Japanese onslaught in from Burma, heathen Burma. The last train, it's a meter station, ran in 1997, and it served the Tipong Colliery. We replicated that, and this became our office. Every day, morning and evening, after our railway work was over, we would sit here and plan for the next day's construction. Brought in a lot of mannequins. The station master, the gangman, the lady who had come to Darjeeling to visit the railway, and ultimately this became the Dekapani gallery inside. The gallery blossomed up. Some of the artifacts, a storm lamp. This particular tube well is a very interesting thing. It has got a tank on top and it's placed in every station. Some of the stations of NF Railway still have it. A lock and a clock. The security men in those days used to use spears and a rudimentary, I don't know, might be a .22 rifle. Dibrugarh workshop didn't have anything to go by, and their dies were made of wood because a lot of timber was available. So this is the workshop items. It even had a comptometer here, the original predecessor of the computer. Lot of stories and legends. We come to the story of Margherita, the Queen of Italy. These legends were all placed all over the museum. This particular bridge is a iconic bridge built in 1882 on a river called Dehi. When the British prospectors came, they wanted to extract the coal. But unfortunately, the coal was always on the eastern part of this river, and it was a very turbulent river. Bridges were built, they got washed away one after the other, and they could not extract the coal. So what happens is somebody told them there were a couple of Italians, the Paganini brothers, who were building, very old people, they were building their last bridge, they are bridge experts in Sardinia. A team from Assam went all the way to Sardinia and requested the Paganini, please help us to build this bridge. And they said, no, we are 70 years old, we are not going to go there and get malaria. But a government to government communication between the British and the Italian government, where Queen Margherita was the first united Italy's queen. By his name, the Margherita pizza is also known. And finally, with a lot of emphasis, they came and they built this wooden bridge, and coal was moved out. But there was one condition. They said the place where the bridge is going to be built, that town is going to be named Margherita by our queen. There was a lot of worry whether really the British government would allow another queen's name onto this place, but it was. And finally, this place, which was called Makum, was shifted, the name was shifted somewhere else, and this is named Margherita. Lekapani has a lot of exhibits, stamps, our freedom struggle. Next, we come to the Heritage Hall. Now, here again, first the rolling stock had to be placed, and then the hall had to be built. Space being a constraint. And this is how it looks thereafter when it is ready. This is a workshop art, which is a fire extinguisher. In those days, they used to have the fire extinguishers in the stations were pulled by horses and bullocks. An MG, meter gauge, WDM 4 locomotive, which ran till 2007 and then given up prematurely when conversion took place. The two coaches which you saw earlier, one of them was made a conference coach. This earns the money for the museum. Not only does it have movie shows, but during the day, museum opens at 4 o'clock in the evening, but during the day, this is also used for hiring out as conference halls and gives us a revenue. An inspection coach made to show people. And finally, Jayamati got her resting place. The panels, the outdoor exhibits, there is an inspection trolley, wheel track. Here, this area has a lot of memorabilia about the Second World War. So you have track bits, you've got wheels, American locomotive wheels available, which were all brought together. A push trolley. Each department was given a techno hut. So their technical material could be placed in the garden in a glass hut. These are the techno huts. And for the Dibru-Sadia railway, even today you can see in many of the level crossings, this kind of a board, which very clearly tells what the road user is supposed to say. This crossing is closed to the public when trains are due to pass or when shunting operations are proceeding. Any person crossing in defiance of this warning is liable to prosecution. English, Assamese. This girder, 1899. This also has a history. One day I was walking across the yard and the permanent way inspector was telling me how they are going to make a workshop art with cotter bolts and dog spikes. When I crossed, I fell over this in long, there was a number of long grasses on a grassy patch, and I was going across the track because I had got an urgent call to attend. And they said, sorry, sir, you fell on this. We are trying to sell this off. And I don't know, nobody's willing to buy it off. When I fell down, this particular plate came in front of me. And I saw, oh my God, 1899. The thought that came to my mind was that my grandfather was also born in 1899. Would I have thrown my grandfather away like this? I said, nothing doing this, has to go to the museum. Old gates, both the boom types as well as the gatewise. Now, this is a very important place, the 524.04 pillar. This is precisely the point which is not existing now, where the Assam Bengal Railway and the Dibru-Sadia Railway met on 1st of March 1903. The birds are, if you were fast at the finishing stage, 5-6 days before the opening, almost getting through. We came on to the inauguration day. The chief guest, who was the general manager, opened it by striking the last spike onto the toy train track. The Eastern Frontier Rifles of the Army came and gave the guard of honor. And the park opened with the first day's crowd, which welcomes its visitors. At night, it springs into a beautiful illuminated sparkle of fountains. These are the people who gave their extra hours for the park. What did we really achieve? Or, excuse me, what were the learning experiences for us? The first thing which was that we were working in a very tense condition, because off and on we would have bomb blasts in that part of the world, militancy, agitation, and we had to run trains with a great caution. This park gave us that release, not only to us, but also to the families. This park was something which the entire city came together. the contractors, the suppliers, the designers, they charged no profit. They only charged cost because they thought that they were part of the park, and we tried to bring them into the management of the park. Even today, when we in 2020, in the raging pandemic was going on, the park celebrated its 10th anniversary with great gusto. So citizens and children were great enthusiasm, gave great enthusiasm to us. Every evening, I used to go to that park and I used to find one lady with her 3 children coming. And I asked her, don't you ever get tired of this place? She says, my children don't. And then she asked, could you make a season ticket for us? We have to buy a ticket every day. And so the season ticket came. Another thing was how we had nobody to teach us how to build how to get material which was similar. From dismantled material, we did get something, but we needed something which was similar. When UNESCO did the DHR's manuals, then we got a hint from there, and we have ourselves made a charter, the Indian Railways Heritage Charter, which gives some guidance on what kind of materials are to be used and what similarity has to be, how to keep originality. Similarly, for liveries of especially the locomotives, the rolling stock, we also realized that the real danger was of the soft heritage. Whether it is building, whether it's bridges, tunnels, even rolling stock, we know that we can conserve them. But what about things like archival materials, timetables? They're all there. Uniforms, traditions, music, movies, and the ethos which is of railways. One of the things we also found was that the obsolescence in the last 3 decades has been very fast compared to the previous century. And therefore, we need now to have museums which will keep material at least after Y2K. And finally, funding the budget, funding the museum. This has been a critical problem. To me, it has been lucky. We were happy. We were lucky enough to get the money. But later on, we had a problem. So finally, the Railway Board has been able to give us a specific allocation head. And now the museums are funded through this particular allocation. But what is really required, perhaps, is an independent authority which will look after all these museums for sustainability. That is a point of debate. So we dedicate this museum to the toiling railwayman who has kept this great organization running for over 1.5 centuries. Thank you very much. Namaskar. I have very little, I think I've exceeded my time, but any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you, Sanjoy, for an excellent presentation. I think you have covered a very wide area. You started with the history, and I think you have encapsulated the history of the Dibru-Sadia Railway, which is indeed fascinating, for this was a private company which got into tea, coal, bricks, plywood, oil, and so many other things, and also ran a railway. And apart from the railway, they ran a sort of barges between Dibrugarh and Kolkata for transporting their tea, but also bringing in material for various construction activities. And the fascinating story of the Pagninis. And you have a station in the far corner of India named after a queen of Italy. The other aspect is this area played a very important role during the Second World War. There were millions of refugees, as was pointed out. The government took over the railway system there, both the Assam Bengal as well as the Dibru Sadia Railway. They expanded the system by building a large siding network and bringing in a whole lot of new rolling stock. And the Garrett was perhaps a good example of that. This was also the area from where the very famous Stillwell Road to China was took off, and very significant amounts of army material and bases were established in that area. You have brought out a number of very fascinating points. The most important being how to create a museum, how we can fund it, and so on. Since we are running out of time, we have got some excellent feedback in the chat box with comments like the museum looks fabulous. Excellent information on the museum. There isn't any place which does not have a story behind it. It felt like a visual novel. It is the premium museum of the North Frontier Railway, which was built with a lot of love, which is quite evident. Excellent and tremendous effort. J.L. Singh rates it amongst the best in India, and Paul Whittle mentions it was a splendid presentation, brings back happy memories of my visit to the museum, to Lekhapani and the Tipong Colliery. So thanks a lot for an excellent presentation. I think all of us enjoyed it. And I hope there is a lot of learning in it for others on Indian Railways, all those who want to sort of build a museum. I think Harish Joshi has raised his hand. Would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, not a question. Sanjay, it was a wonderful thing. I don't want to repeat what Venu sir has said. I mean, I just want to tell you one thing, that Dibrugarh workshop was a part of Kumarthali in Dhaka. I happened to go to Kumarthali workshop and they were saying Dibrugarh में कुछ नहीं था. वो तो साहब सब हम लोगों ने यहाँ से material भेजा, कारीगर लोग from Kumarthali got shifted there. So whatever tools etc. were there, they were actually brought from Kumarthali in Dhaka. I don't know whether that link has been preserved somewhere or not, because that also is part of history.
Absolutely. You're right, sir. You are correct. But that was initial stages up to about 1890. Thereafter...
No, even after 47 partition, 1905 partition. The Kumarthali workshop.
By 1911, the new workshop started building and the complete workshop came in 1921.
Yeah,
it was basically a shed initially, if you did.
Yes.
You are right. Kumarthali helped because
Kumarthali was the main. They said कि साहब हम लोगों ने सारा यहाँ से कारीगर वहाँ जाके सिखाता था, यहाँ से tools वहाँ जाते थे. They all used to tell me those stories.
No, you are very right. But that is when Assam Bengal Railway and Dibru Sadia got merged. It is the later portion because of the war efforts. Because war में इतना effort जरूरत थी that these people couldn't do, and they were in a very sensitive war zone. Right. So most of the movement had been moved out. Even the medical college in Dibrugarh were moved to Dhaka, and it was brought back to Dibrugarh only after independence because of the war.
Oh.
Because war में a lot of evacuation took place of civilians.
Right.
Okay, I think I'll close with one interesting comment. Anubhav Day regarding perhaps the museums on NF Railway at Goom, Sukna and Kuch Bihar require the same amount of love and care in order to bring them up and to see the kind of glory that Tinsukia has. So once again, thank you very, very much for our excellent presentation.
So SS Prasad wanted to speak. He's raised his hand.
I think time is already...
I think we have run out of time.
30 seconds. Okay.